I nearly lost it the morning I found a handwritten HOA violation taped to my windshield. $250 for unauthorized parking. In my own driveway. And the kicker? The self-appointed queen of Cedar Ridge Heights, Paige Whitaker, had her oversized SUV sitting right where I was supposedly illegally parked. Two of her massive tires even pressed into my lawn like she paid the mortgage. I stood there in the rain, arms full of groceries, while Paige sipped wine on her porch and smirked. That was the day I realized she had to be stopped. The HOA queen. When I first moved here, it felt like a dream. Quiet streets, well-kept lawns, neighbors who nodded politely. The HOA seemed like a safety net to keep things tidy. That illusion lasted exactly 3 days. That's when Paige showed up with a bone-crushing handshake and a binder full of rules, half of which sounded like she made them up on the spot. No trash cans visible. No bright-colored flower pots. And my favorite, no parking in your own driveway without approval from the HOA president. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. And somehow, the board treated her like royalty. At first, I kept my head down. But then the driveway battles began. Her SUV started by blocking the edge of my driveway, forcing me to angle into my garage like I was threading a needle. I left polite notes. She ignored them. Soon, she was parking fully across my driveway. One evening I knocked on her door. "Hey, Paige, your SUV's blocking me again. Could you move it?" She took a sip of her wine. "That's community. Parking space. HOA policy." I laughed. "We've got plenty of marked parking spaces on the street. It's an executive exception," she said. "Board members can use available driveways in emergencies." "What's the emergency?" She shrugged. I was tired. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end nicely. The breaking point. I tried everything. Emails, complaints, even filing with the HOA. Of course, the complaint landed on her desk and went nowhere. Instead, I got fines. Each time I parked in my own driveway, she slapped me with a violation. Then came the night that broke me. It was pouring rain. I turned into my driveway, and there it was again, her SUV, parked dead center. No way in. I had to leave my car 2 blocks away and drag heavy bags through the downpour. By the time I reached my porch, soaked and shivering, one bag ripped open. Food splattered across the steps. From her dry, warm porch, Paige laughed. That laugh flipped a switch inside me. The plan. I stayed up half the night researching. HOA rules, property law, drainage ordinances. That's when I found it. Buried in my old disclosures was documentation of an aging underground drainage system that technically needed maintenance. That was my loophole. If I dug up part of my driveway, it wasn't a trap. It was necessary home repair. And if her SUV happened to suffer for it, well, accidents happen. The next afternoon, I rented a mini excavator. The clerk didn't even blink when I said drainage adjustments. By sundown, the machine sat humming in my driveway. I started digging right where her front tires always landed. The trench wasn't deep enough to kill anyone. Just enough so that when those oversized wheels rolled onto my driveway, the cover would give and the SUV would drop like a stone. I covered it with planks and dirt, then propped up a small orange caution maintenance sign for good measure. The setup. New project, a voice asked. Behind me. It was Mark Benson, my neighbor. He'd had his own battles with Paige. She once fined him for non-neutral Christmas lights. Drainage repairs, I said with a grin. He eyed the trench. Then me. Right. Drainage. I hesitated, then leaned closer. Preventative maintenance. For her SUV. Mark let out a low whistle. You're a genius. Need help? Nah, I said. But keep it quiet. And I'll bring beer. Deal. The trap springs. The next afternoon, I sat on my porch pretending to scroll my phone. Right on schedule, Paige's SUV turned the corner. She didn't hesitate. Didn't even glance at the caution sign. She just rolled in, smug as ever. Crack. The planks gave way. The ground collapsed. Her SUV's front end dropped into the trench at a sharp angle. Headlights pointing into the dirt like they were shocked too. Her scream pierced the air. She tumbled out, heels sinking in the mud, designer bag splattering on the ground. I sipped my coffee. Everything all right, Paige? Her face twisted in fury. What did you do to my car? Looks like you ignored the drainage repairs, I said. There's signage. You did this on purpose. Didn't force you to park in my driveway, I shrugged. Neighbors peeked from porches. Mark stood with arms crossed, barely containing laughter. A few phones recorded. Paige whipped out her phone. I'm calling a tow truck. Smart, I said. Might want to call your insurance too. Hope they cover stupidity. The showdown. The tow truck struggled to yank her SUV free, mud sucking at its wheels. By the time it rolled back onto the street, it was caked in dirt, the underbody screeching like nails on a chalkboard. Paige's perfect white SUV was ruined. Then Tyler Grant, an HOA board member who wasn't one of her lackeys, pulled up. What's going on? He asked. Paige jabbed a finger at me. He sabotaged my car. Drainage repair, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. I showed him a photo I'd taken of the orange warning sign. Documented. Tyler frowned. Why were you parking in his driveway? He wasn't using it, she snapped. And as HOA president, that's not how this works, Tyler cut in. Driveways aren't common property. The crowd murmured. Mark spoke up. She's been abusing the rules for months. Fines for decorations. For flowers, for driveways. Enough's enough. The fall of the Queen. 3 days later, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Residents lined up to share stories. Threats over open garage doors, fines for colorful planters, even one neighbor fined for pumpkins. The board voted. It wasn't close. Paige Whitaker was stripped of her role as HOA president. She raged for days, storming around the neighborhood, but her power was gone. A week later, I received a letter from her lawyer accusing me of creating hazardous conditions. My attorney fired. Back with evidence of trespassing and harassment. She dropped the case within days. Finally, the for sale sign appeared on her lawn. The ending. The night the sign went up, Mark threw a barbecue. Neighbors who had barely spoken before were laughing, trading stories, and shaking hands. For the first time since I moved in, it felt like a community. On moving day, I sipped coffee from my porch. As the truck loaded her things, Paige glared one last time. I raised my mug in a silent toast. She scowled, climbed into her SUV, still streaked with dried mud, and drove away. A few hours later, a new car pulled into the driveway. A woman stepped out, sunglasses on, clipboard in hand. She scribbled notes while eyeing a neighbor's bird bath. Mark appeared beside me, chewing on a rib. New neighbor. Looks like it, I said. You don't think? I hope not, I muttered. The woman waved. Hi, I'm Natalie Reed. Just moved in. Welcome to Cedar Ridge Heights, I said. She smiled. By the way, who approves holiday decorations around here? Mark grinned. You do. If you like them, they're approved. She laughed. And for the first time in months, I felt relief. The Queen was gone. My driveway was mine again. And the neighborhood finally belonged to the people who actually lived there.